In this video, we're doing some more upgrades to the Rlaarlo AK-917. We have the center driveshaft support, we have the fancy aluminum, more adjustability in the motor mount, and while we're there, we have this rear diff housing to strengthen up right around that rear diff and make sure if we upgrade power in here, everything back there is pretty solid. I'm going to get the body off and we're going to start diving into what it takes to install these three parts. I'm doing all three of these upgrades at the same time because it requires moving some of the same parts to get to them. We're going to start by snipping a few of these wire ties that hold the lights through, taking out these screws and getting this center brace up and out of the way. It's going to give us access to where this driveshaft brace mounts right down here in the middle, plus access to the motor mount right there. Next, we're going to flip over here on the bottom and we're going to start taking out all these screws right here that help hold that whole motor and gear assembly in. Getting all those screws out does actually make the motor mount now loose, so you can't actually move the motor mount. But actually the drive shaft goes through the motor mount, which means we still need to take more apart in order to free all this up. Now with all of those screws loose on the bottom, look, the whole rear end now comes out, which is going to give us plenty of room to get in there, put this drive shaft, this center support in here, and get it mounted up. There's two screws in the chassis, two holes in the chassis right here for it, and two screws in the bag to mount it. So that's going to be a good next step for us here. Well, that's a problem now, isn't it? But what you'll notice is these drive shafts actually have a little bitty set screw right in the end of them here. 1.5 millimeter driver gets in there, but hey, it's out now. And the bearing still doesn't go on it. Well, isn't that disappointing? So now I've done all that, and I now figure out that it doesn't matter. The bearings that are included are too small for the drive shaft. Well, that's a fail. This goes through here, of course. That's fine, that's what you would expect. Maybe there's supposed to be an upgraded drive shaft, like there's a thinner, fancier drive shaft or something. All right, now that center drive shaft brace is going to go back in the parts bin because it clearly doesn't work with what I have. Still need to get to the motor mount here, but what I will say is I kind of cheated on you while we were gone. While you have this off, turns out it's 1, 2, 3, 4 screws up here, and that actually releases these center pins, these center side diff covers here. So you can see those fancy red diff covers are now, or diff supports, I guess, rear axle housing supports are now in, and that's all it takes. You have the screws out of the bottom already, you take the screws out of the top, and they slide right in place. So those actually work out really well. I think in order to get to this motor mount now, all I need to do is take off this set screw, pull this diff cup out that goes to the center drive shaft, and then I think all of that will be free. Let's see if I'm right. Aha, now that one worked. One set screw out, and then you can just pry the diff cup right off the end of that shaft. And we now have the motor and the motor mount right here, so we can get together with that upgrade. Here we have the old motor mount system versus the new one, and the real big advantage here is if you're going to be changing pinion gears a lot or anything like that, you have to get to these mounting screws here, which are kind of up against the bulkhead and the suspension, hard to get to in order to change gear size or anything along those lines. You do have good adjustability though. It just takes more work to get it done. This one is a slide style, so once you have the motor mounted, two screws loosen up and you can actually slide back and forth to get your gear mesh just right. And if you want to, you can take these screws all the way out and the whole thing slides all the way out, and then you don't even have to mess with all of this stuff that I've had to do in order to get here. This is a very worthwhile upgrade for this car. Using these two supplied cap screws, we're going to mount this bracket to the motor. And then we're going to reinstall the pinion, and notice that it has this little cutout right here just to give you enough space to get in there and get that grub screw in. So I'm then going to go ahead and actually slide this on using 2 of the longer provided screws. I'm going to go ahead and just start this in here, though technically I guess you don't really have to. I went ahead and mounted the motor mount down to the chassis so that that would stop wiggling around on me as much. And look, you can still see here how I can move the motor mount, so I can adjust gear mesh. Again, if I take these 2 screws out, the whole motor slides out and I can change gears very easy. Nice upgrade for this vehicle. I'm gonna get some Loctite and get these 2 screws in and set my gear mesh. I'm not going to show you all about setting gear mesh here in this video. There's a bunch of them online if you ever need to see how to set gear mesh properly. I have all this buttoned up back down here, and look at this. We have a running, moving vehicle. So no little center drive shaft support, which is unfortunate. Really would have liked that. I think it would have made that a lot more stable. But we do have the much fancier motor mount in. We do have these side diff plates in. So that's looking good. All I need to do is button up by putting the gear cover back on. Note from future Troy, this takes a lot of clearancing to put on the gear cover back now. With this new motor mount, it moves everything a lot. You have to clearance this whole area in order to get it to fit. Just a heads up. Then we are going to be done and back into shape. So I hope this video was useful for you if you're considering getting this AK-917. It is a very fun on-road vehicle. I'll have links to it down in the video description, plus along with where you can get these parts and things like that. So thank you for watching. We will see you in the next video. Goodbye.